go. Hi folks, great to be with you and to join you for a few minutes at your sailing festival. Though you would have thought with me approaching the age of 90, they would have let me retire gracefully. But no, and I blame the Wild Bunch for that. If you've sailed and climbed with the Wild Bunch, there's no way you're going to be allowed to retire. The Wild Bunch, who are they? Well, they're my fantastic world-class climbers, big wall climbers, I should say, who have joined me for a couple of expeditions in the past. Now, unfortunately, I have sold my boat, Dodo's Delight. Dodo's Delight, Dodo's Delight, shining blue and white. You may want to watch the video of the song after this or at some stage. So nowadays I'm sailing on other people's boats. So last year, for instance, 2023, with Nico and Sean and Ben and myself and a new young recruit to the Wild Bunch, we sailed on Mike Brooks's Cornelia from Scotland to Faroes to Iceland to Scoresby Sound. Scoresby Sound, halfway up the east coast of Greenland, perhaps the biggest fjord in the world, or so I'm told. 360 square miles sticks in my mind. And we went right to the far end of this, to Grenlandii, so that the Wild Bunch could climb Mirror Wall. Now I know this is a sailing festival and not a climbing festival, but bear with me for a moment because it was horrendous. For a start, they had to walk in 30 to 40 kilometers over really desperate terrain. Glaciers, yes, glaciers with sand on them as well, terminal moraines, lateral moraines, huge fields of ice boulders, and they had to do this twice to get all their mountains of gear up to the mountain. So they were pretty bushed, pretty tired by the time that they got there. Well, they did very well. They got 700 meters up and then they were stopped by a completely blank section of wall. Because I should explain that though this wall was sheer, what they didn't know was that it was also almost completely smooth with very few crack lines in it. So it was really very, very difficult climbing. So they had to abort and come back down again. But the good news is that they went back this year and completed the climb. A fantastic, fantastic achievement. Meantime, though, this year, I had been doing quite a lot of sailing. In fact, I'd been really quite busy. For a start, in last January, way back in last January, I sailed on a 60-foot, that's about 18 meters, aluminium aero-rigged boat called Navara. Aero-rig is a really intriguing rig, and I'll just try and demonstrate it for a moment. It has two masts, and the boom for the masts is fore and aft, and is an integral part of each mast. So to tune the sails, you just revolve the mast electrically, of course. And it has a jib and a mainsail on each mast, so it's a really powerful rig. So we had a fun downwind sail from Morocco in North Africa, about 800 miles or so, down to the Cape Verde Islands. The only trouble was that towards the end, the wind gave out altogether, and we had to put the motor on. We were surprised, or I was at least, as we were going down south, to come across a whole lot of ships that were sailing up north past us. And I couldn't understand why there were so many ships going the other way on this route down to the Cape Verdes. But then somebody remarked, of course, it's the Houthi in Yemen who are shelling ships trying to get into the Red Sea. And so companies are rerouting them all right round the Cape of Good Hope and up the west coast of Africa to get to Europe in that way. So it was a good passage. Then in July, I sailed on another powerful aluminium boat, a turnstone, about 50 foot, 15 meters perhaps, from the Lofoten Islands in Norway right across to Iceland. And again, it was a fast and excellent passage, though the winds were fairly variable, 30 knots plus, going right down to dead calm and having to put the motor on, then 30 knots plus again. And so it did keep us guessing for a while. But you'll laugh, I was feeling my age, because I was amazed that you could just put information and regulations into this wind predict. And not only would it tell you what the wind was going to do that day, but it was going to it told you what it was going to do for a few days subsequently. And incredibly, if you put in these regulations and info, we don't want to go for more than 35 knots of wind, and boat speed about 5 to 6 knots. If you put all this in, it could actually draw you a route or a track all the way from the Lofotens right across to Iceland. So we duly did that, and it did that, and we just followed the route. Well, of course, to an oldie, this is ridiculous. And where was the challenge? And what about going outside and searching the sky and the sea and making up your mind as to what the weather was going to do and trying to choose the best tack and all that sort of thing? But no, it was a fast passage across and a very excellent time we had of it. Well, after that, in July, there was a bit of an interlude with some pleasant sailing round the west coast of Scotland. It's a wonderful sailing area, a cruising area, the west coast of Scotland. You can put your anchor down wherever you want to. You'll often be the only boat in that particular bay or inlet. None of this having to go into a marina or anything desperate like that. So again, that was a pleasant interlude. And then following that, there was a sail in company, which I had never performed before, and I don't think it's really quite my scene, but it was around some of the islands of the Azores. So it was very pleasant sailing, though it was far too hot for somebody who styles himself as an Arctic explorer. But in that, I had a first experience, which was actually rather great, because sailing from Terceira to Ponta Delgada, I sailed on a Polynesian type catamaran, or double canoe catamaran, as they like to call them, and a James Warren cat, Spirit of Gaia. This was a new one to me. I'd never been on a catamaran before, let alone a Polynesian type. Fairly primitive. There were no heads. You made your own arrangements. But it was very, very stable, and given wind, it went like a bomb. So we had a tremendous sail across to Ponta Delgada, and this was a new experience for me. So maybe there's life in the old dog still, or put it another way, old Marines don't die, they just fade away. So is that what I'm doing? Maybe. Lovely to be with you. Have a good festival. Bye-bye now.